What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Johnny Lazarus, and welcome to May. It's May 1st. Crazy that we're already here. The season has absolutely flown by. And Colby, it's honestly a shame tonight that Game 6 between the Leafs and the Ottawa Senators no longer matters, because whichever team comes out of that series is just going to get steamrolled by the Florida Panthers, because this team just cannot be beaten. They take down the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games, back-to-back years. Looks like nobody can stop them. What'd you make of that game, and what'd you make of all the games last night? But I feel like that game had the most significance.
Well, the only place that I want to stop you on there a little bit is, as good as Florida played, and they did play well, I didn't love how Bob played in the series. You know, like he did enough to win. There's no doubt about that. But like, he didn't face, with Tampa, like they always have some
They didn't pressure him much, though.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Like, they're always going to get chances, right? Because they have guys that can just make plays. But how often in the series was Florida really back on their heels for more than 4-5 minute stretches, like at a time? And maybe that's something we asked Brant about, and we asked him to give us some ice tilt data from that whole series. It just didn't, like, sure, I can remember maybe the first period in game 2, even though Tampa lost, I think they came out with their hair on fire and they played really well. But I think that Florida's D-core and their neutral zone and the way that they created turnovers, a lot of them at the defensive blue line, like just holding their ice and forcing Tampa into turnovers, maybe between the red line and the offensive blue line for Tampa. I think that probably, protected Bob a little bit. And I just don't think Tampa really got to the inside. Like, Tampa didn't spend enough time between the hash marks. Like, Braden Point was not his normal self in this series. Gensel seemed to get to those areas, but I mean, Kucherov has 0 goals in 15 playoff games in a row. And how many of those games are against? How many of those are against Florida? A lot of them. A lot of them.
At least 10 of them.
I was just gonna say at least 10 of them. And so, like, Florida is just such a good team. And Seth Jones, like, how often do you see a player who gets traded at the deadline have this much of a positive impact? Like, normally it's like the third line guys and like the role guys, but like, when do you see this where Seth Jones and Brad Marchand, the 2 trade deadline big name guys, have this much of an impact on the series? I mean, those 2 were phenomenal.
What did Seth Jones play last night?
26, 51, so almost 27 minutes of a regulation game, right?
Yeah,
no overtime. No overtime. And look, here's the other thing I'll say is, John Cooper's not getting fired. If Cooper leaves Tampa, it's going to be because him and Julien Brisebois sit down and they basically come to some sort of, like, I don't even think it would come from Brisebois. I think it would come from Coop. I think he would be the one that says, you know what, I need to move on. I'm not the guy to get this group over the hump anymore. Because you look at Tampa, and I went through their whole cap situation. Cirelli's got 6 years with no move protection. Point's got 5 with no move protection. Gensel has 6 with no move protection. Hagel has 7. His no move kicks in 2026. Paul's got 4, no trade protection. Cooch has 2, no trade. Hedman's got 4, no trade. McDonough's got 1, no trade. Cernak's got 6, no trade. Vasilevsky 3, no move. Borgstrand 1 with a no trade. And then Geeky is on his ELC. Mitchell Chafee makes $800,000. Mosier's got 1 year left. He's unprotected. Basically, like 15 or 16 of your guys that are under contract all have no move, no trades. So, like, this roster can't change that much. Perbix, Glendening, and Gord are the UFAs, right? Like, how are you changing this roster that much? Well, Marchand, or excuse me, no, we're talking about Tampa. But
I don't know if you said it because I was looking stuff up while you were talking at the end there, but did you mention that they have no first round picks for the next 3 years too?
No, I didn't. I didn't even get there yet, but that's a good point. No first round picks for the next 3 years. Like, my concern with Tampa is the bill is coming due. Like, you are getting ready to pay for your Stanley Cup runs, not just your Stanley Cups. Stanley Cup runs, which, the Bruins are paying for right now, and Chicago's paying for right now. That's all the years you didn't win where you went all in at the deadline. And like the Bills do. I'm worried, man, because this group doesn't seem able to get over the hunch. I hated the way Eric Chernak played in the series. He's got 6 years and a no trade clause, right? Like Kucherov, obviously one of the best players in the world. The players voted him the best player in the damn league. No goals in 15 games. What are we doing here? So look, I'll be the first to say it. I was so wrong about this series and about my prediction.
I think a lot of people were.
Well, but I'll tell you what I really like. I didn't know about Matthew Tkachuk, and we didn't know what his status would be. Okay. We didn't know how good and effective he would be. I mean, he only played 10.5 minutes last night.
Yeah. It's not even the big guns for Florida. It's the Sam Bennett's. It's the Lusteranins.
Well, but I would put Bennett in as a big gun, the way he plays in the playoffs, the way he produces, not just offensively, but in every other zone.
But you look at Florida and you think Barkov and Tkachuk are like, Reinhart, I'd say.
But you're built with a bunch of really good high-end elite offensive, but also like elite defensive players. Like
best third line in the NHL.
I mean, these guys, like even Brad Marchand, like he can be really good defensively. Like he learned from Claude Julien and Bruce Cassidy. Like, so, this Florida team, hey, listen, if Bobrovsky can play 915 hockey, there's no reason why this team isn't making their way back to the Stanley Cup Finals. Is there?
Well, that's the thing too. So like, looking at just the way the series went, Tampa didn't have north of 22 shots on goal in a single game until last night. Like Florida limited them to 22 shots or less in 4 of the 5 games. And that's the best offensive team in the league this year. Like they finished with the most goals per game in the regular season. They were one of the hottest teams down the stretch. And we didn't even mention Verhaeghe. Neil Simmons with a good point.
Yeah, it's a good call. He's a kill. He's a man. Does that guy goes up another level in the playoffs?
But last thing too with Tampa, like I like Braden Point. Where was he really in the playoffs? Like
I said that. I said that. Yeah.
But so down the stretch, like we were talking about how hot this Tampa team was and how flaky Florida was. Obviously, Florida wasn't fully healthy and playing all their guys. But, we saw it with Dallas, too. Dallas had a rough final 7 games. Now, look where they are. Like, I think we take too much into account how teams finish the last, 3 weeks, month of the season. And think about that going into play. Everyone thought Tampa because how they finished the year.
Yeah, but part of that is, Johnny, is like most teams can't flip a switch. Maybe the teams that have been there and who can draw.
But Tampa's been one of those teams.
I know, but that's where Florida can flip a switch. But how many teams can really flip a switch? We did not do it with Washington, V-Dog. Vic is texting us right now saying we did it with Washington too. I did not do that with Washington.
Yeah, I think I took the Caps to sweep that series.
And I still think the Caps can beat Carolina. I'm taking the Caps over Carolina in round 2. They got Protas back now.
Yeah.
They're getting good goaltending. Like
Freddie Anderson being out might be a big
the power play, you still have Ovi. Yeah, granted, Washington has a little bit of a difficult time with their in-zone entries. But so I am not going to sit in that category with you guys, Vic, because I had Washington. Yeah. I had Washington all the way. Like, to me, there was never a doubt for Washington. So
same.
I think right now is a good time for John Cooper to exit stage left. I really do. I think for him, I think it's like, you know what? We've had a long run. We've won. We'll love each other forever, but I'm ready to move on to the next group. And I think
I disagree.
Maybe the group needs a new voice. Maybe they do. Maybe they need a new voice. Like Kucherov, Point, like those guys were invisible in the playoffs.
But I don't think it's time for him because Kucherov's still at the top. I know he didn't have a good playoff, but he's still at the top of his game.
Yeah. Oh, listen, agreed. Look at the points he had this year. But hey,
they have a different opponent.
It's 2 playoffs in a row.
Opponent, maybe it's a different story. Like I think you just got to tip your cap to the Florida Panthers right now.
Yeah. Well, listen, Coop said it. They're an exceptional team.
Yeah.
They're an exceptional team. He said it twice, but I'm not saying like I saw what Paul Maurice did. He's like, you know what? I'm not the guy anymore to get this group over the hump. And some
coaches, but they never did it.
I get that, but some coaches, they evaluate that situation and they almost think it might be best for both. It might be best for both, and they've got to figure out a way to use.
Why is everyone saying Coop's going to Utah? Why is that like a thing?
Keep this cap money and use this cap money to figure out their back end, because Lilleberg and Perbix are they're not it. Like they have been trying this Perbix experiment to me for a number of years, and it just continues to not work out. You didn't have any offensive depth on the back end. Like, is Darren Radish really going to be your second power play quarterback? Like you're loaded up front, but your defense, look how much of a difficult time they had breaking the puck out against Florida. They couldn't do it against their forecheck, right? Which completely slows the forwards down, and it makes the neutral zone way more difficult when you're not, moving, smoothly out of your own zone. So again, even with all the big names that they have signed long-term, like I see the bill being due soon here. These are aging players. Hedman is up there. Mac is going to be he's either 36 or going to be 36 years old because he's an 89 birth year. He's the same year as I am. So, I think that it's an interesting situation. Like, I would not be shocked if Coop decides like it's time to go. Yeah, I don't see Coop getting fired ever from that.
I don't think he goes. I don't think he goes. Not while Kucherov's playing this well. Even Vasilevsky still had another good year. Like Victor Hedman's still at the top of his game. Braden Point, Jake. Like I think there's still too many weapons there for him to want to walk away. Mm-hmm. Like why not give it one more shot? But Vic just mentioned Marty St. Louis now is the 4th longest tenured coach in the NHL, and he's only been in Montreal since 2022. Only John Cooper, Jared Bednar, and Rod Brindamore have been with their team longer. It's pretty insane that 4 years is the longest tenured coach or 4th longest tenured coach right now in the NHL. Also, I guess I'm the last one to realize that John Cooper and Ryan Smith are good friends and golf buddies. Zach just texted me in the chat, just updated me on that too. Because I said, why is this John Cooper to Utah thing such a rumor? But I just listen.
And hold on, New York Marine. He says, what situation is better for Coop to go to right now, though? Maybe there isn't one right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe he steps away for a year and waits, like Paul Maurice did. I'm just
he could also do TV.
It's never not happened before. Is all I'm saying. Like coaching these teams is extremely. It's stressful. It's 24/7. I'm not saying he's going to do it. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if he did it. And we'll see. Like I'm not sure. Like what else could open up? Does Bednar get fired? Sharma is asking. I don't foresee Bednar.
They're winning the series.
I'm not sure they're going to win the series, but
they're winning the series.
I don't foresee that. So. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know what's exactly going to happen, but I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me. It would not shock me, Johnny.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, we didn't even mention like the other series. We do have Andy Strickland, by the way, coming on any minute here, and then we do have Mike Russo joining at like 9:30. So we'll hear from the Blues perspective on the Blues and Jets, and then the Minnesota Wild tonight trying to stay alive and force a Game 7 against the Vegas Golden Knights. So we do have guests today. I didn't mention that off the top. But Colby, do you want to talk about Montreal and Washington just briefly, because the Capitals, like as we suspected, won that series pretty early and are now moving on to play against the Carolina Hurricanes.
And Catherine, Coop does not need a new contract. He still has another year on it, but I don't think money is the issue here by any means. Like I just don't foresee that happening. And that is one part of it, though, is if he does have a year left on his contract and he does decide to step down, I do believe that Tampa still has to like give him permission to talk to other teams, depending on how his contract is written. So, yeah, listen, that Montreal game was interesting because Montreal actually started really well in that game, created some turnovers early in the game. I think Chychrun and Carlson both had tough ones early. And then I think it was Slavkovsky who had that offensive zone penalty, and then everything just went downhill from there. Caps get a power play. They get the lead, and Montreal was just never really able to recover. And again, you're without Montembeault, your starter. We talked about the inexperience on the back end besides Savard, who, tip your cap to him. He had a really nice career. Savard, he's retired. It's funny. I actually played a lot. I
didn't even know that he was retiring. I didn't know that.
I played a lot against him in the early days in the American League when he was with Columbus in Springfield. And he was a guy who it took him some time to figure it out because he would always be back in Springfield. And when he was in the American League, he stood out. Like he didn't belong in the American League. There was no blend factor for him. Not in like a flashy way by any means, but he was just better than everybody else most nights in the games that he played down in the American League. So good for him on a good career, gets a cup, gets to play in some iconic franchises and stuff like that. But Washington just, they're a machine. Like they really are a machine, and they a big deal here. You get Protas back who had a great season, and he's just another big forward. He's another big man. He's another guy who plays in straight lines. Trying to look up his ice time. He played 16:48 last night. He was listed on the fourth line, but I think he kind of bounced Leonard out of his spot at one point. Leonard only played 9 minutes.
I'm seeing some comments like Blue Jackets would have been a better opponent versus Washington. Do you make anything of that or no? No. So hard to tell. Like I feel like we can sit here and say that now because the Capitals beat Montreal in 5 games, but like these were a pretty close competitive 5 games. It's not like the Caps steamrolled Montreal here by any means.
Well, I mean, listen, of course they're NHL playoff games, and Washington played like Washington does. Like it's not glamorous. It's kind of it's blue collar hockey, but granted, their power play at times can make glamorous plays, and Ovi can do glamorous things, and Strome makes plays. But that's the thing, and that's why I liked Washington into the playoffs, was they play playoff style hockey. There's not a lot of high risk east-west play. It's straight lines. It's direct. Like Ovi doesn't play that much. Ovi plays 13, 14 minutes a night. Depending on special teams, but it's kind of the brand of hockey that usually doesn't go stale, the Washington Capitals. And that's why I believed in them, to have a good first round series. So, all right, let's keep moving here because, we do have Andy Strickland, and we do want to talk about that St. Louis Winnipeg series. We want to talk about that hit, Johnny. So I'll let you take it from here.
So before we bring Andy Strickland on, just want to give a quick word from our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And I got 2 questions for you off the bat here, Andy. First of all, good morning, because I'm supposed to greet our guests.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let me get that out of the way. Second, for anyone who hasn't listened yet, go back and listen to Cam and Strick the first 3 minutes from the other day, because I was laughing my ass off. So for anyone who hasn't heard that yet, go back. It was.
Can you give some context? I didn't.
It was Tuesday's episode. I sent it to you and you didn't listen because you never listen to anything I.
Well, I don't respect when we're not working to I ignore you. You know that.
just go back. It's Tuesday's episode, I think, right, Andy? Or Monday?
Tuesday. Every Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah. So go back and listen to Tuesday, and then second. Are Neil and Monty trying to do their best impression of Coop and Paul Maurice here? It doesn't seem very natural to have coach drama between those two.
No. Well, they're actually really good friends, and they've known each other for a long time. They go way back together.
Well, that makes
Monty,
it even better, honestly.
Yeah. Back when Monty was a player playing in the American Hockey League. So, so it was a little bit, it's I don't want to say out of character, because it's not out of character. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs, but, it's manufactured a little bit as well, but I don't expect the league to respond to it. I mean, I think Braden Shen's hit on Shifley. I think you could make a case that it was a penalty, and that's what they called. They called the minor penalty on the play, and then he got the extra 2 after all this, came about with the Winnipeg players jumping in. And I didn't even have a problem with that. Some people were saying to me last night, hey, Shen shouldn't have gotten an extra minor here. But, when you deliver that type of hit, there's an original penalty on the play, even after a melee. It's kind of hard not to give Winnipeg the power play when it's all said and done after that situation. But the league isn't going to respond. He did a pretty good job, honestly, of keeping his hands down. He didn't really make contact with the head. And this is, something that you have to do in the playoffs, as you guys know. You got to be physical on their best players. I didn't think they did a good enough job with that the first couple of games of the series. I think Shifley and Connor, maybe they had 1 or 2 hits against, looking at the numbers after the first couple of games. So they did a better job of that in games 3 and 4 at home, and they had some success. But Shifley took a beating in that first period yesterday. I mean, he was getting hit all over the ice, and when he was trying to deliver hits, as was the case with Radek Faksa and even Jordan Kyrou, he ended up taking the worst end of it. I mean, Kyrou, I've never really seen him reverse somebody and kind of stick his ass out the way that he did. Shifley went barreling over him, and Fox is a big man, and he took the brunt of that hit. So who knows what led to him actually leaving the game, which hit is responsible for it. I guess we can't call Monty Dr. Monty anymore, according to Scott Arneal,
That stuff's fun. Like I mean, when the coaches start taking jabs at each other like that, I like that, and I'm with you on that, Andy. Like that play was called correctly. It's a 2-minute penalty. Look, the puck is right there. Like it's a quick decision. This wasn't like the puck was nowhere to be found. It's kind of a little bit of a battle already. I looked at that and I went, that's right to me. It's 2 minutes. It's definitely a little bit of interference. There's no doubt. That's why you get the 2 minutes and then you move on. Like that's not a supplemental discipline type of hit. That's a playoff hit. And that's a 2-minute well worth it type of play in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Exactly. It doesn't rise to the level of supplemental discipline. But go back and watch the play and look at Mark Shifley. I mean, for whatever reason, he just didn't see the hit coming at all. I mean, normally he's pretty aware of his surroundings on the ice, especially knowing who's on the ice for the other team. You're up around the wall. I mean, a guy like Braden Shen is looking to finish checks every time he's on the ice. He had a huge hit on Dave Lowry. I keep calling him Dave Lowry. Dave Lowry played for the Blues back in the day. He's just a coach with Seattle. But on Adam Lowry, who is a big man. I mean, you forget how big he is.
Isn't that his dad? Because didn't
he
coach
Dave
him?
Lowry?
Because he coached him in Winnipeg when he had the interim tag.
And he played like well over 1,000 games in the league. I love Dave Lowry back in the day. Played with Calgary, played with St. Louis. Great guy. We've had him on the podcast. Although who knows how that's going to play out with him right now in Seattle. He's kind of hanging out to dry a little bit. They've only told Jess, I believe, the one assistant coach there, that she's coming back. The rest of the assistants aren't exactly sure how that's going to play out. But regardless,
wait, hold on. Let me ask you. Let me ask you about that. Wait. So they told her she's coming back, and they told Dave Lowry, who's been doing this for how many years, that he's already not coming back?
They haven't said that he's not coming back, but it's going to be up to whoever is hired as the new head coach to make that decision.
And whoever gets hired is inheriting Jess, is what you're saying?
100%.
Wow. Okay. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. So she'll be there.
Rules apply to thee, but not all, I guess, right? I mean,
but I don't know what's going to happen. Hey, but I think Calgary might be looking for an assistant. He's going to be in good shape when it comes to Dave Lowry in terms of finding his way back on a bench if he wants to continue to be an assistant. But Adam Lowry took a monster hit earlier in the series from Braden Shen. But go back and look at the hit from Shifley last night and look at his eyes. Like he was kind of watching his pass. The puck was going down the wall. And I mean, look at it right here. Watch his eyes. You'll see it on the next look. If it's a replay that I'm thinking of, and he just didn't see the hit coming from. You get a better look here. Maybe not, but regardless, yeah, good hit by Brayden Schenn. Brayden Schenn, he crushes guys. Now, I love watching Schenn hit. It's not always in volume, although he does get a ton of hits, but it's one of the harder hitters in the league, without question.
Yeah, and there's no head contact there. And again, let's put this out there as well. You hate the outcome when you see a guy like Scheifele go out of a seat, like if he can't play, like you hate that. Yeah. I mean, you want the top players in the playoffs. Like there's no doubt about that. So, but hey, it's a contact sport. It's physical. You can't watch, and shit's gonna happen, Johnny, at times when those types of things come up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm getting DMs and I'm seeing it in the chat, like people wanting me and dying for me to ask you, Andy, like what's happened to Jordan Kyrou since that hit from Stanley, because apparently he's just gone invisible to all the Blues fans.
Yeah, he has been. He didn't play great last night.
Yeah, but none of them really did.
No, I know. So, he scored a couple of goals, power play goals. The goal that he scored at home, the game was kind of out of hand already. Listen, when you look at a structured team like Winnipeg, as you guys know, you're just not going to get too many chances off the rush just because of their ability to play their system to a T, how responsible they are defensively, especially with the forwards, the way that they come back. So you just don't always get those, transition numbers going the other way. So the Blues kind of, and a guy like Kyrou, relishes off those counters and the ability to kind of use his speed and score those rush goals, or on the power play. He hasn't really had those chances. We see guys like him in the playoffs in the past. They don't always stand out, right? It's Nathan Walker had 2 goals last night for the Blues. Sometimes
how good
it's those players that get to the front of the net, and are willing to kind of pay that price. That's how you score,
That net front sequence on Walker's first goal, like not just the goal, but if you watch the 20 seconds before the goal, 15 seconds, him battling for position in front of the net, he's literally like a dog on a bone. And like, if you ever wanted to show a young hockey player what standing in front of a goalie's eyes looks like and not standing off to the side and waving your stick at it, like that was textbook job by Nathan Walker. But Strick, watching that game last night, that looked like sort of a little more vintage Winnipeg, where they keep everything on the perimeter. They don't let you get inside the house. They don't let you have those direct plays towards the net with puck recoveries. And that's kind of what it looked like last night. Are you confident that the Blues, now going back on home ice, have the ability to win 2 in a row? I mean, that's a big hill to climb against a good team. Like Winnipeg is a good hockey team. They're getting healthier. Hellebuck was good last night. He lets in that 1 goal. That was horrible. I mean, that was as bad a goal as you see.
The Snuggerud one?
But he did make some unbelievable saves as well, like the one with the paddle of his stick. So where do you kind of fall with this series and your confidence level?
That's where Winnipeg's got to show that they can bring the game that they've played at home on the road, and vice versa for St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis has just been shot out of a cannon in their 2 home games. I mean, look at the pace that they play with and how they attack in layers and how they just completely smother you and they get in on the forecheck. And Winnipeg just didn't have any answer. I mean, I think St. Louis is deeper offensively than Winnipeg. I mean, Winnipeg last night was the first time all series that they've gotten, any secondary scoring whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much been the same guys that have been contributing. They hadn't gotten really any offense at all from their back end. So, they got some production from their defensemen last night. I think the Blues are leading all teams right now in defensive scoring. I mean, they're just getting a ton of points. Fowler has a lot to do with that. He got another assist last night. I think he's got points in
every game, I think.
5 games so far. Yeah, he's been fantastic. He's among the league leaders in scoring right now in the playoffs. So, I think St. Louis, their focus obviously has to be to, get back to their game and play at the pace and, play with the energy that they showed in games 3 and games 4. Because that was the quietest game we've seen them play last night. I mean, even go back to the first couple of games of the series. I mean, the game was right there for them. And they played certainly a way more relentless style where they were getting those second and third efforts, spending more time in the Winnipeg end. Maybe they didn't have the volume of shots in game 2, or even maybe in game 1. I'm trying to remember how many shots on goal they had in game 1, but sometimes it's not always about volume. You look at a Jim Montgomery coach teams, I don't think his teams have ever finished in the top 10 in shots on goal. So it's can't always judge it by that, but you got to spend more time at the offensive end. You talk about Nathan Walker's first goal. I mean, and the 20, 25 seconds leading up to that, I mean, just the pressure that they were putting on, you know, in the Winnipeg end, right? It was, you know, Winnipeg couldn't get the puck out, and they were able to get pucks to the net, and they had bodies to the net, and that's how they scored. Walker's second goal completely outmuscles Luke Schenn. He's half Luke Schenn's size, and then beats him to the front of the net, and he puts the puck in the empty net there. So that's what Nathan Walker can do. That's why he's in the lineup. I think he was top 10 in the league in hits this year, man. He's a feisty little guy. But I think the Blues are confident. They've won 14 consecutive games on home ice. They're the hottest team in the league on home ice. So they knew coming into the series they got to find a way to win a game on the road. I think Winnipeg was the best road team in the NHL during the regular season. So they'd love to close it out in 6. It's going to be a challenge if they don't have Scheifele, but I think they know they can get it done. Comes down to goaltending for me, for Hellebuck. Which version are we going to see? Because he got chased in each of the 2 games in St. Louis, and he made some big-time saves last night, but still a couple of the goals that he led, and even the amazing save that everyone's going to talk about today that he made on Sundqvist.
Lucky.
I mean, he just –
lucky.
It was an effort save, and it was an acrobatic save and an athletic save that we typically don't see him have to make because he is so technically sound. He doesn't get himself caught like that. But he played that a little weird to expose the other half of the net as much as he did when you've got a couple of, a third, I don't want to say fourth liners for a guy like Sundqvist, but, Walker's a fourth line guy coming down on the 2-on-1 and just, I think, gave too much respect to Walker on the play where half of the net was wide open. He probably should have buried it. And
he shot it right at the stick. It wasn't.
It was a great save, but at the same time,
come on, Johnny, you
goalie
can't.
people last night.
Save. I don't give a shit what anyone says. That's the
but when you reach and you knock a puck out of midair, like you're talking about the guy who's gonna win the Vezina. Like you think it's just all luck? Come on.
Yes. There was.
I
don't think there was anything acrobatic about it. He reached out.
Come on.
It was a desperation save. But if you watch it here, look at the way he plays it. I mean, did he really need to? I don't know. Talking to a few goalie people last night, they didn't feel like he played the 2-on-1 very well.
His feet. Well, it's funny. Mike McKenna talked about how his feet can sometimes get stuck straight.
Yeah.
And it looks like his feet got stuck.
Look where he is.
True, Walker didn't really sell shot very well there. The way he was kind of opened and angled, it definitely felt past. But hey, listen, it was a huge moment.
Yeah, I'll give him credit for reaching back.
The game is tied, and then Winnipeg scores a goal in the next 4 or 5 minutes, right? So it is a big moment. That's a momentum swing right there that you can point at, however you want to look at it.
I think right after that play is when Sundqvist got called for the embellishing minor. Right, it was coming back down the other end. Well, I think it was offsetting, but I'm trying to remember how quickly they scored after that. Listen, it was a great save. That's a desperation, athletic save. But you talk to goalie people, they feel like maybe he plays that a little bit better.
The whole net's wide open.
He doesn't have to make that save look as difficult as it was. But the embellishment call on Sundqvist, I think that's a reputation call. The bench wasn't happy with it. But I think he's got a little bit of a reputation among the officials or with the officials throughout the league where he's gotten caught doing that a couple of times this year. And if it was a different player, maybe they don't call the embellishment because he did get hit in the face, but he stole it pretty good.
Wasn't he bleeding?
Yeah, he was.
I think he was, yeah. But he threw his hands up to his head and he dove down. So I just think the optics from the officials and they see the name on the nameplate on the back of the jersey, they're like, no, we're going to call this guy for embellishing too. But Monty wasn't happy about that.
All right, I have to apologize to Mike Russo because I need to ask you one more question, and Mike is patiently waiting here, looking to hop on next. So I got to apologize ahead of time, Bruce. When we bring you on, you can chirp me. Just going to put that out there. But, Andy, Colby and I think, both actually picked St. Louis to finish 8th in the division this year. We looked at this roster. We did not like their decor. We thought they were too slow. We didn't trust Binnington. And now, they have a chance to force a Game 7 against the President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets. So looking at like where their contracts are, they have some forwards locked up, but their decor is pretty much, coming up in a year or so outside of Parayko. Like, what is this first round series and the success this team has had now do for the future going forward? Because now you look at this roster and it's like, oh, we can actually compete again.
Oh, yeah. And they've got more kids coming. I mean, Dalibor Dvorsky, who was a 10th overall pick a few years back, who's going to play for Slovakia in the World Championships coming up. He's not even with the team right now, but scored over 20 goals in the American League as a 19-year-old this year. They got a couple of Swedes who they drafted in the first round, Otto Stenberg, Theo Lindstein, who's a defenseman. So they've got some players on the way. They took a Czech kid last year in the first round. A defenseman has been dealing with some injuries. But they love the future. I feel like it's already a win. The fact that they were able to have that run towards the end of the season and get into the playoffs, they're a little bit ahead of schedule. But look at the way Jimmy Snuggerud played last night. I mean, this guy is getting some unreal experience that he's going to be able to utilize moving forward. Guys like Neighbors, who I think led all forwards in ice time for the Blues last night. Bolduc getting some experience. Tucker, who didn't play last night. I mean, they've got some young guys who, you didn't think would be able to get some playoff experience. This is going to be valuable experience for them moving forward. Tucker signed a 2-year contract extension a few weeks ago. So, listen, they've got some great pieces still coming in. But next year, the bar is raised a little bit. I think they're going to be expected to be a playoff team for sure heading into next year. And even Doug Armstrong told me privately before this season, he felt like this team was good enough to make the playoffs. But again, they weren't going to really put that out there publicly just because you didn't know how the season was going to play out. But they got hot at the right time. They got goaltending, a ton of experience on the back end. Look at how much experience they had in the lineup last night with Ryan Suter playing over 1,500 games. So, we'll see how it plays out, moving forward with some of these guys who have a year left in the deal. Letty, you look at him, you look at Falk. There could be some movement in the offseason. We'll see how it plays out.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy. We really appreciate it this morning. And again, for anyone who hasn't yet, go listen to Tuesday's episode. I was laughing my ass off.
How are you handling these late games, by the way? I'm like exhausted. I had to take my kid to the airport at 5 o'clock this morning. Air Canada, get it together. Because you're struggling today, man. Maybe they were watching too much playoff hockey last night.
Brutal.
Too, so.
I don't understand why we can't start at 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30. Why do we have to? I know I'm being selfish.
I'm a night owl, so I've been fine.
People on the West Coast do not want to go to they do not want to go to a 5 o'clock hockey game. But I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about me and my 5 a.m. alarm clock of 2 children, 2.5 and younger. So yeah, it's rough, Strick. It's rough.
I know. Thanks, boys. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Andy.
Have a great day. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's not waste any time. We got Mike Russo waiting patiently, but before we bring him on, just want to give a quick word from our sponsor, Budweiser. And Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for playoffs, not excuses. Every goal, every check, every win is better enjoyed with your bud. So phone a bud, text a bud, ping a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on the playoffs. After all, the playoffs are the most wonderful time of year. Make them count. When it's springtime, it's go time. And Bruce, before I even ask a question, I actually have to thank you. I think it was your first appearance ever on the show when you called me out for wearing shorts on a plane from the scene in Curb Your Enthusiasm. And since that moment, I have actually not done it. I haven't worn shorts on a plane since. And this past weekend, I flew home from Austin, Texas, and a guy I was sitting next to was wearing like the chubbies. I think that's what they're called, like the 6-inch shorts. And I was like, okay, now I kind of get it. This is disgusting. Like sitting next to this guy.
I had somebody sitting next to me on a plane yesterday coming back from Vegas, and his naked knees are touching me. And I'm like, dude, man, just move over a little bit.
Just get a nice pair of comfy joggers. There's so many.
Exactly.
I only wear joggers now on a plane. That's it. Only
Yeah.
joggers.
I just like to me, it's just like it's so unsanitary flying planes that I don't want anything touching anything. And so I just thought. When we were, I think where were we at? We were at LaGuardia going back to Tampa or Florida.
I think.
Yeah. And
I introduced myself, and you look at me and go, really? Shorts on a plane?
That is
I live my life good. Like everything from Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. I feel like you could relate to everyday life, and there's so many things that happened in all those episodes that I just there's nothing that happens in life that I don't relate back to one of those two shows. So So that's probably what it was.
Well, you've changed my life. I just wanted you to know.
Bruce, my dad is an architect and a builder, and there was a stretch of time when we were younger where he was doing, like, he would do his work and then like he'd build somebody a home or a property or whatever, and then he was really into golf, so he started doing basically synthetic greens and stuff like that in people's at their houses. So they'd have their own little, sand traps and rooms where they could hit balls. And this was kind of before it was trendy. Now, like, it's gotten way more trendy. And he went out to California and he actually did one at Larry David's house.
Wow.
And he did work for Larry David. And this is like, I was probably 10 years old at the time. So we're going back 25, 26 years. And the stories that he told me, and we watched Curb. I mean, that was always a show we all watched, not Seinfeld, but Curb. And the stories that my dad told me after doing the work for Larry at his house, like exactly how you'd expect. Like they had an argument over golf swing. They had an argument over golf balls, like exactly how you'd expect Larry to be. My dad was reporting back to us. It's literally exactly how it was working for him.
Yeah, I would give anything to meet him. I'd be, like I don't get awestruck by athletes, but if I ever met him, I would be awestruck. And I'd be so nervous because he's the type of guy, you've seen his personality so much on television that I'd be like,
feel like your friend,
just what he's thinking, because there's a lot that he does too. Like he openly talks about how he hates small talk and hates and that's kind of like me. So I'm the worst small talker ever, as anybody that's met me knows. And, I could be looking right through you and not even hear a word that you're saying. And I feel like that would be what I would be thinking if he was talking to me the whole time. Like, I am not keeping him interested. I'm losing,
Yeah. I walked by him in the tunnel at MSG this year when we were going into the locker room. He was leaving the game, and I was too scared to say anything. And he was like, he was actually singing. He was singing something. I don't know, but
that's funny because the only times I've ever seen him in person have been at MSG. But I would never go up to him if
much taller in person too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but let's get into a little bit of hockey because I feel like we can do the Curb stuff for 30-40 minutes. What is the pulse right now for Minnesota Wild fans? Like, I got to imagine they got to feel, despite how that game ended, they got to feel pretty good about where they're at coming back home with how they've played on home ice so far in this series.
Yeah. Well, the pulse for the team, I think, is good. The pulse, as you asked for the fans, is never good.
Well, they said it's a typical Tuesday night. What happened?
Exactly. I mean, that was truly unbelievable. I mean, even you saw my reaction on Twitter. I'm just like, Nyquist is offside. Oh my God! Like, you can't even, like, it's so Minnesotan, it's not even possible. But then, hey, the Wolves go out and finish business last night, so some people are at least waking up today feeling a little better. I think the Wild could force a Game 7. Absolutely. I will say I picked the Knights at the beginning of the series in 6, so I'm sort of on par here. But I do think the Wild have a chance to make this a series. They talked yesterday about how they're coming to the rink today, packing for 8 days. They're not just packing to go back to Vegas or flying tonight. They're packing to go on to Edmonton or LA. And so, they've played really well in this series. This has not been like your typical Minnesota Wild series where, they've had some clunkers and just haven't really been on par with their opponent. Any of these games could have gone either way. Vegas is a really, really tough opponent. They're getting really quality play from some people. Last couple games, we've seen the best of Jack Eichel. I loved the line makeups last game going into the game by Bruce Cassidy, and that caused some concern for me going into the game on how the Wild were going to be able to handle it. Yet the Wild at least were on the ice and were able to be on par with them. And unfortunately, at the end, really sloppy mistake by a veteran hockey player cost them potentially a victory.
What do you think about the level, though, that Matthew Boldy has gone to this year? And do you, and we've said this, attribute it to maybe playing on the big stage of the Four Nations and realizing like, whoa, I'm actually one of the best in the entire league. I'm not just in the NHL. I'm a star in the NHL.
Yeah, I totally, as I've always said, there, it's not illegal for the Wild to actually have 2 stars like a lot of teams, and that's what they've been hoping that Matt Boldy would get to. Before the season, Bill Guerin, he wasn't predicting necessarily this year, but he thinks in the future that Boldy has a chance to be a 50-50 guy in this league. And he was certainly for a lot of the season on pace for 40 and 40. His game, he went through long droughts of not scoring when Kaprizov was out, and I think that could be really pinned on the fact that when you're the Wild and you don't have a lot of depth, and Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and guys like this are out of your lineup, there's one person that you really got to check and worry about, and that was Matt Boldy, and he saw a lot of really top defenders this year, and it made him really fight through it. But I think he went to the Four Nations, and he came back and he started to play really much more consistently. The droughts sort of went away, and down the stretch of the season, the last couple of weeks, he was as good as it gets, and he's just elevated in the playoffs. And his first, 2 playoffs, he had played 12 games. He had 1 goal. Bill Guerin really wanted him to play with, quote, more FU in his game and get to the inside, and we're seeing him do that all postseason long so far.
Well, let me ask you about Kaprizov too, because we're all learning more about Boldy because he's still pretty new to the league. He's younger, but with Kaprizov, looking back at his playoff numbers, he had 1 good playoff year. I think he had like 7 goals in 6 games back in 21-22. But other than that, like his playoff numbers don't really stand out in the previous 3 postseasons he's been in.
Mm-hmm.
And are you learning anything new about Kaprizov? I mean, we're all aware that he's one of the best, if not the best winger in hockey right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm learning anything new. Like his first playoffs, it was a real good integration. Like, he realized how things ramped up quickly against Vegas, and he got better as the round went along. Against St. Louis, he was by far their best forward. And then against Dallas, unfortunately, he went into the series. He'd missed 12 of his last 14 games. I believe it was 12. He missed like 13 in a row, then 2 of the last 4 after Logan Stanley toppled over him and tore his hamstring. So he went into that series rusty. He scored the first goal of the series against Dallas, and then not again. And afterwards, he admitted that he just wasn't 100% and wasn't feeling on top of his game just because he missed so much time down the stretch. I think this is much more what we expected from him. He's obviously very well rested coming into the postseason, only missing the majority of really half the season. He played 41 games and played the last 4 of the season, so he missed a ton of time. And now I think the only thing that's really surprised me is how after somebody that really missed a lot of time down the stretch, you go into a postseason against a Vegas team that's playing 500 miles an hour, and he just immediately got up to the pace and has probably been the best player for the Wild, definitely in the series, maybe overall in the series.
Probably in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really good. I mean, like there's a lot of guys from Vegas, I think, performing really well. Like Barbashev's been awesome. Hurdle's been great. Carlson's playing awesome. Brett Howden. But in this series, like definitely Kaprizov is I think the best player on the ice. And overall in the postseason, I mean, he's been really, really good. And he's going to have to be really good tonight in Game 6 to force Game 7, because we know that Vegas knows how tough it is to close out, and they're going to want to come here and make sure they don't leave it to chance.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, I think they are going to close it out, Bruce. I think when Jack Eichel sort of re-entered the series last game, I think that smells a lot of trouble for anybody that he plays against. But, I'm a big John Hynes guy. I have personal ties to him going back to the national development team. I've always been a huge believer in his motivation style. I've always, looked at things that he did and given him the benefit of the doubt and said, you know what? I know he knows more than me, so I might not agree, but I bet you there's a reason why he's doing what he's doing. And I've always seeked that out from him. A lot of the discourse that I see, though, amongst the fan base and even some of the media members for Minnesota has been the usage of the third pair. There's been some people thinking, well, Bouillon should be playing, but he should be playing with a better partner. And I've just seen, oh, well, look who's on the ice for the overtime goal against, right? And so I'm just curious from your standpoint, how you would grade the way that John Hynes has managed this team, managed the back end. And, you could even look up at the forwards. How's he managed Marco Rossi? This was a big playoff for him. Was he going to get himself that big contract that he was looking for? Or is this a parting of the ways type of season? So, I know it's a long-winded question and it's a little bit of a broad topic, but I'm just curious how you have felt as somebody who is with this team day in and day out. John Hynes has sort of managed his rosters and his lineups and his minutes.
Well, I think, the one thing that I always want to put into context that I sound like a broken record for is that, this team is 15, 16 million under the cap. So it's limited the talent level.
Very limited.
Especially on their back end. So he only has so many guys that he can have. In terms of the better partner, like Zach Bogosian has been their worst defenseman this season, and yet they don't take him out of the lineup. Part of it is because they don't really have another right shot guy in there. Part of it is that they feel from a physicality standpoint, a veteran standpoint, that a penalty kill standpoint, that he should be in the lineup. But the reality is that a lot of their fatal errors this year, analytically and on the ice with our own eyes, have really started with him. I mean, that winning goal the other night, John Merrill looks like he's the worst player in the world. It's not his fault. It started behind the net with Bogosian, and then to your other guy, Rossi. He compounded the issue. So there's not many things that they could do. I guess the big thing that I had is John Merrill has a lot of value in John Hines has a lot of value in John Merrill. He went into this series. Obviously, they signed Steve William. There was a lot of pressure to get him in the lineup. They threw him right into the lineup. They didn't feel comfortable playing him in the must-win game, but then they threw him in the first 4 games of the season. And then in that overtime, he has the double minor in game 4. It turns the third period upside down for a team that had been 31-0 all season when leading after 2 periods. Turns that period upside down, and then they don't trust him in overtime. It winds up tiring out some of their guys. Jake Nettleton makes some big mistake. Then the next night, they scratch him. So it's like they weren't just committing to the bit. And then ironically, they put the third pair on the ice in overtime, and it cost them really the game. So, but again, I don't know how much John could do there. I think there was pressure to play Zeev, but you have to trust your guys. And I think right now in a high-pressure game, in a high-stakes situation, they just didn't trust him, especially because offensively, he wasn't offsetting some of the defensive issues. He had only 2 shots. He had only the 1 assist. And I just think that if he was dynamic right out of the gate, like Kyle McCarr, they would have just continued to go with him. But I think they just felt like they had to take him out. The Rossi thing I haven't liked. It just felt like to me they had a preconceived notion going into the playoffs that their second leading scorer wasn't going to be able to function in his first postseason. And they immediately started him on the third line. And then right away put him down to the fourth line. And then he can't seem to elevate off that line, even though he scored huge goals back-to-back games. And, it'd be one thing if Freddie Gaudreau was playing out of his mind, but Gaudreau and Nyquist have not been good at all. Yeah. And so I just don't understand, with Marco here, it just always seems like he's held to a different standard than others, that he's got to, because he's undersized with this playoffs, that he's got to just prove himself way, way more. And I don't get why they're using him this way. But then, from a coach's perspective, as you said, John knows a lot more than us. And clearly there's things defensively he doesn't trust about him. And maybe we saw it on that winning goal the other night. Marco just was caught in no man's land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they're trying to work that contract number down a little bit. I mean, I don't think you go into something looking at that, but if you're Bill Guerin, you might be sitting up there going, maybe this saves me a couple bucks. I mean, I listen, it's
I think if they thought that he was going to help him, they'd use him more. I still think he could help him, and I think they should. I think he deserves it. He's done everything they possibly have asked in this organization, skipping his sister's wedding, skipping Olympic qualifiers, spending all off-season here a couple of years ago. He's just such a pro, and yet, it just seems like he's always got to work harder to try to prove himself. I don't think that at this point, you could, they offered him a really quality contract. It wasn't accepted as of now. I don't know if it's still on the table. It was around 5 times 5, so kind of a AAV of Dylan Strome or Anton Lundell or something like that, which is, pretty good. Like, I could see where the Wild are like, that's a great contract. But from his standpoint, being an under 23-year-old with 60 points, back-to-back career years, I'm sure his agents are thinking long-term. And
they want 8 times 8, probably.
Exactly. And in the hierarchy of the Wild and where he's going to fit, I mean, you're seeing now in the short term, they can't even get on the top power play unit or a top 9 role. I don't think the Wild are going to go that route. And so this could be the beginning of him getting traded this summer.
Just a question I see in the chat, and I'm actually curious about this too, because I've, this has come up in like other situations in my like playing career, but did they make him skip his sister's wedding or?
No, it was his decision. He came over, they asked him to come that summer to basically work out and skate with their skating coach. And it was at the end of August. And he's just like, I want to be in the best position I can to make the team. At the Olympic qualifier, they sort of like a little wink, come on over, and he did. And
credit to him, though. That's a tough choice to make.
Well, he's such a pro. I mean, that's the thing, is that he wants to be a great hockey player. He's got a high belief in himself. I think the world of the kid. And if it's not here, that's the way that I figure. Like, I know that he's probably hurt the way that he's being treated now, but you know what? He's going to have a long career, whether that's somewhere. And and unfortunately, it might be somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we talk about it all the time here. I feel like too, where sometimes guys just don't pan out somewhere, and then they go thrive somewhere else. Like it's totally normal.
And they got look, they're going to be having some more money this offseason to play with. They're going to try to make some bold moves. They're going to go after some free agents that we know some of the names. That's the one thing is that they have Urov coming over. They've got a lot of young other prospects coming. So the Wild, when they plug everything around, they're just trying to think on, all right, where is Rossi going to fit there long term? And they've got to be like, if they don't think he's the top, first or second line center in the future long term here, then this is the decision they have to make. I still think they offered him a quality contract, but I don't think this is where but I will say I don't think the business has anything to do with the way that they're being deployed here. I think it more just shows you on kind of what their opinion is of him and why they're probably playing hardball with him.
Yeah, just my last one. Sorry, go Colby.
No, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, whether it's him and really the rest of the roster when the handcuffs come off this summer. Like I think the Minnesota Wild, because of Bill Guerin, I think become a free agent, like a place players want to go play. There's a great reputation around the organization right now between the management and the coaching staff, and so. I mean, again, I don't foresee them getting out of this round. I tip my hat. They were without so many of their quality players for such long stretches this season, and what they were able to kind of rally around and get themselves into the playoffs and then really make a series in a way that a lot of people didn't think would even be. Maybe in Minnesota, everybody expected to see the Wild fight tooth and nail. I thought Vegas would win this series 4-1. I don't know what my prediction might have been 4-2 when we did our predictions, but there's been times of this series, actually maybe more minutes of this series where Minnesota's looked like the better team than Vegas, than Vegas has looked like Minnesota. So tip my cap to them. We'll see what happens tonight. Johnny, I know you got one more. And then, like I said, the offseason is going to be really fascinating between the Kaprizov contract and the new cap space and all that. So probably a decently exciting time to be a Minnesota Wild fan.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, my last one, keeping it simple. Is there any update on Philip Gustafsson? Because I know, he left the game with an illness, obviously, at the end of the second period. Is Fleury gonna play tonight? What's the deal?
No, at least yesterday they said that he's feeling much better and that he should be able to be good to go today. So we'll see at the morning skate. I did see him after the game last night, and he looked white as a ghost. So clearly, for him to come out in that situation, he had to be super, super sick, so I think that he's going to come in. He's been unbelievable this series, and that almost was shocked. Like when he came out of that game sick, I was shocked because he was so good in the first two periods of game 5. So I'm really excited for tonight's game because I think the Wild are going to at least show up and put in their best effort. They've done it all series long. If Kaprizov and Boldy show up and Gustafsson's been as good as he was the 5 games, it just would not shock me in the least if the Wild force the 7th game. They seem to, this something about this team that when their backs are against the wall, they just figure out a way. And maybe it's the scar tissue of a lot of adversity this season. They just figure out a way to rally together and have a big game. So I think we're going to see the best of guys like Foligno tonight, and Faber was unbelievable last night. So I bet XL Energy Center will be rocking.
Well, I hope you're right. I don't think you are, but I hope you're right. I hope tomorrow you can, or after the game tonight, you can message me and say, "See, Colby, you're an idiot. You were wrong." But
no, hey, I picked Vegas in 6-2, so theoretically we're both on the same page. But I will say. Probably he does now. But
he watches the show exactly.
Yeah,
just so he can rip on
he's a huge fan, exactly as he should watch the show to rip on Johnny. There's I don't know. There's to your guys' point, I just didn't think the Wild be as competitive as they have been this series, and frankly, they could be up. I mean, they lost 2 coin tosses in overtime, so. And probably the first 10 minutes of the first overtime, in game 4, they were the better team, and had the better chances. So we'll see what happens tonight. Let's put it this way: I'm gonna I have a 6 a.m. flight back to Vegas tomorrow, and I've already packed also for about 8 days. So
wow.
So we'll see.
Well,
but
yeah,
that's out of necessity. So
we appreciate your time this morning, though, Roos. Thank you so much. And if they do force a game 7, you might be getting a text from me to come back on. So
no problem. Just have your producer send me an invite this time.
Yeah, suck it, Vic.
Vacation Vic can smell that summer air, and he's getting loose with his 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 ability to remember things. So thanks, Roos. Have a great day, and we'll chat with you soon. All right.
All right. See ya.
Colby, just one comment from the chat I wanted to read. Matty Mugno, Puck Talk CS. Nuts that Tampa Bay Lightning getting slogged for another round 1 loss after back-to-back Cup semifinal appearance. Yet Minnesota every year is a first round exit and no one says anything. Matty, you must not listen to me because I rip Minnesota all the time. I mean, we've been calling Minnesota mid since this show has started. Minnesota loses in the first round every year, and that's what everyone there's nothing else to say. That's what there is to talk about.
You're also talking about different expectations. You're it's not the same, so you're not comparing 2 similar situations. Kev Dog's asking when we're going to bring Tony D back on the show. I mean, honestly, I know, I think until this potentially his Islanders, maybe if he gets a new contract, if it gets situated, but I think Tony D is he's laying low right now. He's actually this weekend, and we've talked about this with Tony on the show before, he's coaching a bunch of he's at a hockey tournament this weekend, coaching a bunch of, 2010 or 11 birth year kids. We've said this on the show before, nobody spends more time around the rink with the young kids. Nobody gives their time more in our area, in this Philly, South Jersey area than he does. So we will see if we can get him to come back on, depending what team he signs with and what the media rules around that team are. So, all right, Johnny, let's go to tonight. And let's talk about our expectations for this evening.
Well, with the first game, should I do 365? Because the first game is the Bet 365 bet of the night. Should I just knock that out?
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. So the first game of the night, I'm not going to tell you who we're taking yet, but it is presented by Bet 365. So if you want to get into the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet 365, they've got you from game props, player props, totals, and the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, and the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet 365. So download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You must be 19 or older. So with that, and J-Rock knows it, I'm taking the favorite in the Battle of Ontario tonight. And guess who's favored in this game? Ottawa mother effing Senators at home to force a game 7, minus 115. I just think they're gonna do it, man. I'm starting to believe more and more in the Ottawa Senators. Linus Ullmark having the game of his series in game 5. And J-Ham, everyone said congrats to the Leafs last time I picked the Sens, and it did not work out in the Leafs' favor. But I feel good about Ottawa, man. I think it'd be outside of last year's Stanley Cup final, game 7 might be the most anticipated game 7 that we've watched in the last 25 years. If that series were to go to game 7.
Okay.
You have nothing to say about that?
Well, I mean, listen, we're going to do picks, so I'm going to save my pick till when we actually get into picks.
We're doing it now. Let's talk Ottawa. Ottawa.
Yeah.
And Toronto,
okay.
first game of the night.
Look, I'm a sucker here, bud, but I think Toronto closes it out tonight in Ottawa.
Wait, do you think that's a crazy statement that I said it could be the most anticipated game 7? And
because listen, I think everybody is
outside of the Cup final last year.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think Boston, Toronto last year probably was
dude coming back from down 3-0, Ottawa's first time in the playoffs in 7 years against.
I mean, but there's been other series that started with 3-0 or 3-1 that the Leafs were involved in. I mean, look,
the Leafs have not blown a 3-0 lead.
it's going to be up there for sure. It's definitely going to be up there, and it's the battle for Ontario. So it's
a
definitely going to
rivalry,
be
3-0 comeback.
It's definitely going to be up there, but I don't think it gets there. I think Toronto takes care of business tonight. Why do I think that? I can't give you any logical reason.
Wool or Stolarz?
I asked Carter Hutton last night, and he said, "No, you gotta stay with Stolarz at this point."
I agree.
So if you couldn't do it last game, which is when I would have done it, now Stoley's your guy. He's your guy. So, and listen, we said Stolarz wasn't the reason they didn't win last game, but again, as Mike McKenna put it, you got two bullets, you should use them. But I expect we'll see Stolarz tonight. So I think Toronto gets it done, which I wouldn't make that. It shouldn't make you feel very good because I haven't been right very often this year in the playoffs. It's been a year of wrong picks for me. After almost going chalk in the NCAA tournament, I'm one of my Stanley Cup final teams is already out, and Colorado's on the ropes too. And who knows what they're going to do in their game tonight. So you think Ottawa forces a game 7? I think Toronto takes care of business. Of course, I won't be shocked if the big, Tavares played pretty well last game, but if the big dogs don't show up tonight, will I be surprised by that? Why would anybody be surprised by that? So those guys continually don't show up in the big moments. So we'll see. Maybe tonight will be different. I don't know. Hopefully, but we'll see. So I take the Leafs in that game.
Okay, and the next game we got Vegas and Minnesota starting at 7:30. A bit of an early start for those teams, but I guess there's 3 Western Conference games tonight. I think Vegas closes it out. We just heard from Russo. He had Vegas in 6. I think you and I both had Vegas in 5. With Gustafsson's health being questionable, that's obviously a concern. He's been, the better goalie of the 2 in the playoffs. Obviously
he's not injured. He's not injured.
Yeah. I said his health being questionable.
Yeah. I just want to be clear.
You said that with Russo, but listen, I think you and I both touched on it yesterday. Jack Eichel finding his game in game 5. You got to think he carries that momentum into game 6. Tomas Hertl has been great. Shea Theodore has been great. Also, I wanted to, I'm not going to get into it. Never mind. I think Vegas closes out. What do you think?
I also think Vegas closes the series out tonight. I think they smell blood in the water. I like the way Jack Eichel played last game. Stone gets on the board last game. They get some scoring from Carlson, especially if their power play can be a little more consistent. I saw Dorofeev was I don't know if it was he's day-to-day dealing with some sort of little injury maybe. I mean, they didn't say he's not going to play or anything, but he didn't practice. So I was getting on him for not shooting the puck on the power play. So I like the Golden Knights.
Okay. Next game, I think Colorado forces the game 7. We haven't really talked much about Kale. Kale only has 2 assists in 5 games. He's been pretty quiet, but
he hasn't given us much to talk about.
Hasn't given us. Well, that's kind of why I'm saying. But I don't think Natchez has scored a goal yet. Some of the Colorado guys have been. Brock Nelson, I don't believe, has scored a goal. Just looking up the numbers now. Drouin hasn't scored a goal. These guys have been quiet. Yeah, I'm looking right now. Nelson, no goals. Drouin, no goals. McCarr, no goals. Natchez, no goals. Ross Colton has only played in 1 game. But these guys got to step up for Colorado tonight. Blackwood did not have his best game in game 5, but he's been good enough in this series to keep them afloat. How about Nathan McKinnon, though? 31 shots on goal through 5 games. That's insane. I think Colorado forces game 7.
So do I.
Yeah.
I think they do. I also want to see that one go 7, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I hope that one goes to 7. Home ice, you got to think Colorado could win a game on home ice.
Are you fighting it right now? What's going on?
I mean, you're boring.
Okay. And the last
putting
game,
me to sleep.
The last game, I think the Oilers close it out too. I have no faith in the LA Kings now, and especially playing in that building with how it's been rocking.
Yeah.
Not only in this series, but just throughout the last couple of years in the playoffs. this to me is
I agree.
It's over.
I agree. I mean, Jim Hiller's short-lived tenure ends tonight for the LA Kings because they've given this series to a team that, honestly, the Oilers have played one game where they looked really good, like a really good playoff team. And every other game, it's been, you're flipping a coin, you're getting into horse races, you're missing your details. But if Edmonton can come out and duplicate that effort again, there's no reason to think LA's gonna win, especially in Edmonton. Why are they gonna get that done? So yeah, I like Edmonton to close out. I like Vegas to close out. I like Toronto to close out. And I like the Avs to force a game 7. So we were different on the Sens game, and we were riding the other ones. I mean, listen, it's hard to end a team season. There's just a human nature level of desperation that it's hard to match, even in playoffs. It's difficult. These elimination games are very difficult. So,
which game are you most excited for?
I mean, probably the Leafs Senators game. I mean, I especially because it's at 7:00. I mean, how can that not be the game you're most excited for? I mean, I'm also
the Oilers Kings. I mean, and Colorado Dallas. Like all these are all great games.
Yeah. Listen,
even Vegas Minnesota, like all 4 games are going to be great games. The hockey tonight should be awesome.
Yeah, it should be. And then Friday we only have one game. Or is that just one game on Friday? Then depending on what happens
game
in some of these other series.
Yeah.
Like next week, we're gonna be back
we could have 4 game 7s on Saturday.
Yeah, well, and then next week we're not gonna have 4 games anymore. We're gonna be dealing with 2 games per night, which I think is kind of
much better.
It's so much more digestible. But they'll have like a 9:30 p.m. and a 10:30 p.m. puck drop for the 2 games. Like, I will say this. It's catching up with me. Like I don't stay up until 1:00 in the morning every night.
Yeah.
And it is 100% catching up with me right now. Going to bed late and getting up early. I'm definitely dragging a little bit. I've been having to drink like an espresso at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's when it hits the hardest, is the midday.
Well, especially with kids, and then going, knowing I need to stay up again until 1:00. To watch these games, because I think it was earlier in the Edmonton. I fell asleep during a third period, and then I think it was the first game Edmonton had the comeback, and I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So.
You just got to be mentally tougher, man.
Yeah. Okay. Come deal with 5:30 a.m. screaming alarm clocks. Okay. And then tell me I got to get mentally tougher.
Wow.
Listen, if you could find someone to have kids with you, then, we'll have that conversation later. Okay. Maybe we could talk about your matching outfits from last night, or we could leave that to social media.
Can I tell that story actually?
No. Anyways, we do appreciate. Oh, Vic, I got a little recording error on my screen right now. I hope that's not a problem, but we do appreciate everybody in the chat today. We had good guests today. We don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. I think you said you were going to try to get Mike Rupp tomorrow. I think you said that, right?
Yeah, I'll text Rupper.
I'm sure he'll text you back. You've been on a hot streak this week.
I guys both guessed today.
Anyways, we are grateful for the chat today. Make sure you like this episode on your way out the door. What else? Subscribe. Who's on the sheet?
J-Rock's comment, by the way.
Who does the sheet on Thursdays? Is that a regular?
I don't think they have a Thursday.
Troy and Johnny had matching outfits.
Well done, J-Rock.
Yeah, I don't know who they'll have today. And I don't see Zach.
Pierre.
Pierre Maguire. Yeah. There you go. Didn't you say Pierre had somebody interesting? Oh, Cronin, right?
Greg Cronin.
Yeah, so yeah. I'm sure Jeff and Pierre will talk about that Greg Cronin interview, because that seems to be
Jeff should get G on too,
making the rounds. Some potential he said, she said right
Yeah,
now. Greg Cronin,
back.
Greg Cronin said a story. Some people are calling that story and saying that's bullshit. That never happened with Trevor Zegras. I haven't heard of many players who like Greg Cronin, just for the record. Anyways, all right. Like the episode, subscribe, get automatic downloads on. Let's keep the numbers pumping. We do have a show tomorrow, which is Friday. It'll
be a lot about the games tonight, though. I mean, these games are going to be
with 4 games like this. Yeah, it'll be a big game. It'll be a big game day show. So make sure you guys come up and show up tomorrow on Friday. Again, we're still kind of testing this whole Friday show thing. So if you guys want them, then be there and get in the comments and leave comments on the YouTube stream. There was some, I think I replied to 1 or 2 comments on the YouTube stream yesterday, later in the day. So try to answer the ones that are within reason. And other than that, we hope everybody has a good day. Johnny, I don't know what you have planned for the rest of the day, but hopefully you're doing something where you're not going to go rollerblading and take another digger in the city. Maybe you and G can get matching outfits and go rollerblading in the city today.
No blading for me today.
Okay, no rollerblading for Johnny today. All right, everybody, we hope you have a good day. DFO live at noon, the sheet at 3. We'll see everybody right back here tomorrow.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.